Good afternoon. Today is day 5 of the stay home notice at Fairmont. I just got out of the shower. My hair is still wet. Sorry about that. Um, what have I been up to today? My friend bought for me more bubble tea. Well, it's not really bubble tea, but it's more like coffee and tea. So thanks, Melissa. Today is Easter, so we got a kind of a special meal, and thank you for that. I appreciate it. A little more calories to burn off, but I've exercised for the day, so that's good. Oh, the sun is so bright. White balance is out of whack. Anyway, nothing much has happened today other than my husband and I watching Aquaman. Or is it Aquaman? I guess that's what it is. Well, that was the last movie I worked on before I left visual effects, so I thought it would be nice to watch it. It was a long show. I like the VFX and the costume design. Apparently, I thought that it would look cheesy, but that yellow and green looks good on Jason. I guess it helps to be really ripped and tall and handsome, huh? Today I'd like to talk about my experience leaving Singapore as a Singaporean. So, in 2013, I left Singapore to go to work in New Zealand. That was pretty freaking awesome. New Zealand is such a wonderful, beautiful place, and if you get the chance to go visit, you should. I lived in New Zealand for 1.5 years. Most of the time I was working, but I managed to see a little bit of New Zealand's beauty. I'll put some pictures. Well, the funny thing is that when I arrived in New Zealand, when I was still living in the hotel, there was this huge earthquake, and I thought for a moment there that I was gonna die. It was super scary. It was quite traumatic for me because I've never experienced any kind of natural disaster being in Singapore, and that was really, really scary. I think the worst thing was that we were just waiting to see if there would be some sort of tsunami after that earthquake, and being by the water in Wellington didn't really help. I had a place by the water as well, and when I was there, they basically like painted lines on the ground for like tsunami safe areas, and I'm like, I'm not sure if I want to live in this country long term. It's like you get the beauty, but it is a dangerous place too. So yeah, whatever it is, I love New Zealand so much, and I would love to visit again. So after New Zealand, got a job in Vancouver, Canada, and I was living in Canada from 2015, I think, till 2018, and that was also a cool experience. Canada, it's its own beauty too. It's kind of nice to be in Canada as well because a lot of my friends were living there, so I wasn't as lonely. After 2018, I lived in the US, Washington State. So it was, of course, another beautiful place. I really do like living in Washington, but the cost of living there is almost as expensive as living in Singapore. So that's why we had to leave early this year to go to Texas. And so now we are settled down in Texas. And right after that, I had to leave to go back to Singapore to renew my passport and update my information. So I didn't get to enjoy much of Texas yet. Can't wait to go back. As a Singaporean, I think it is a good idea to be able to live overseas. You get to kind of understand how it's like outside of Singapore. Singapore is it's a wonderful place, but it is really a bubble. The government does a good job protecting you, and you know, when I was living in Singapore, I never realized how much of a bubble I'm in. Like the buses run on time, trains run on time, the streets are super safe. I don't have to worry about walking alone at night. Living overseas, that's the kind of things that you need to be aware of. So, in a way, you kind of learn a little bit more of independence. Singapore, I feel, is slightly overpopulated, and it is a good city, but sometimes I just want to have more space, and it's something that you can't really get in Singapore unless you are rich. You tend to have to only live with your parents if you're not married, and if you are, it's still really expensive here for a small home. My neck hurts. When I was living in Singapore before I moved to New Zealand, it was more like I hate the country. Like I can't wait to get out. I mean, I told my mom, I think when I was 17, that I'm not gonna live here because it was such a difficult place to live. And I meant that, like, financially, monetarily, we are always struggling. But after I left and then came back, I realized that there are a lot of things in Singapore that I took for granted. The food, the family, the friends. Because of that, it's really hard to be living alone in the US. Well, I'm living with my husband, but you know, it's hard to be away from family and friends. You gotta do what you gotta do to survive. Maybe one day I can afford a home in Singapore and retire here, but as of now, I can't. But Singaporeans, if you have a chance to go and live overseas, go live overseas for a few years. You will probably appreciate Singapore a lot more. But at the same time, it's like if you feel like you found a home somewhere else, don't feel guilty about having to leave the country. It's hard to leave your family and friends, but if you have to chase for a better life, a cheaper cost of living, then, you should do it. Alright, enough of the ramble. See you tomorrow!